Howdy folks, welcome back to Boondockery. Today I'm going to give you my final thoughts on the Danchel outdoor tent stove and the Tigris CozShack.
If by any chance you have not seen the numerous videos I have posted concerning the Danchel Outdoors tent stove and the Tigris CozShack, you might want to go ahead and exit the video now. Check some of those out because I'm not going to be rehashing a lot of the same stuff that I went over in those videos in this one. This video is primarily going to be a final thoughts video and more of a formal review. Let's start off with the overall design of this shelter. This shelter is designed to do a lot of different things. So far, all the things that I have tried, it does all those things very well. It can be a pole-less tent in that you tie off the peaks, run a ridge line through, and guy line out the lower peaks. It's a tent. Stake it down. It's a tent. Did it great. It can be a hammock shelter. At the top of the doors, there's another zipper that zips down so you can run your hammock straps through those and zip them down to where it doesn't create a draft. That would work great. It can be, as you can see, sort of like an awning, a little summertime shelter. It can also be used as a Jeep or a truck tent, in that if I didn't have this pole here and I had that peak guy lined out on a couple other trees and I backed my Jeep in here, I could actually put the tailgate up, or the back window, they call it the tailgate. It's a door. You messed up with the design, Jeep. In my humble opinion, it should have been a tailgate, not a door. Anyway, where these areas here are rolled up, those can actually be guy lined out as well, which greatly enhances the size of this shelter. And you can have your vehicle in here, open it up, be able to access that, and then have this area here for covered seating. And I think it would do that well. I'm probably never going to do anything like that because I don't like the idea of a Jeep tent or a truck tent or anything else. I don't want my vehicle tethered to my shelter. If I have to leave, I don't want to have to break everything down, throw it in the vehicle and go. I just want to go. Or if you're overlanding, you set the thing up, you go play. So I would probably never use it in that configuration. So the overall design is pretty good. The footprint of it is basically a square, and it's definitely tall enough for, I think, the average person to be able to stay up in. I'm 5'9", and right here I've got about a foot, a little excess of a foot between the top of my head to the peak. And so even if you're fairly tall, you can still come to the center to get dressed or do something that you need to stand perfectly upright to do that. So of all the things that it's advertised to do that I have tried, which is now everything other than a Jeep or a truck tent, it does it well. The other thing this tent does, and does well, is functions as a hot tent. Between its geometry, its configuration and design, and the reflective quality of the fabric that they use, it functions beautifully as a hot tent. A conical style, which is the other hot tent I have, and it is non-reflective. It's a ridiculously priced novelty that does not work. I'll leave it at that. A conical style, you have the peak, it fills up with the heat and it comes down, and then it starts to come back in almost like an upside down ice cream cone, and it comes up and out from the wood stove and all of the area on the ground around the edge of the bottom of the teepee. There's no heat there. The geometry of this tent facilitates a unique flow of heat. The reflective nature of the fabric creates a parabolic reflector from both sides and the ceiling, projecting that heat to the other side and even the other corner. I'm impressed. We had very cold temperatures this past winter, and as long as I kept this turned all the way down, all the vents closed and everything else like that, I was averaging, in the 60s, which was very comfortable for me. And one time I opened it up a little bit, stepped out for a few, I came back in, it was 100 degrees. So this thing definitely works very, very well as a hot tent. I'm in control of the stove, therefore I'm in control of the amount of heat that is in the tent. I do not want to sweat in my tent, so that's why I kept it in the 60s. I just want to do a quick walk around and show you some of the features of the tent in this configuration. This is pretty nice. This will be really, really handy in the summer months. And as you can see, I'll take you around the side here so you can see what it's supposed to look like. Now, the configuration of this shelter is the footprint is a square. You have a ridgeline peak that goes across the top, and the footprint is a square. So you have a diagonal triangle coming down also on the other side. When you unzip the side door and the other side door, and you unzip the short side here, which is, this is the only side that has that. As you can see right over there, that does not have a zipper. This side over here does. And again, it has that whole triangular configuration. Unzip the corner here and unzip the other corners, and you can roll the side of the wall up, and you put them in those toggles. So you can create a pretty nice little awning area. And this is really convenient for if it's raining and you want to cook and you can't use your fire pit because, you know, it's pouring down rain, but it's summer and you don't want the heat to be killing you. You know, you can actually cook in there. Now, granted, you can vary the height of your pole so you have runoff, and you can avoid a little bit of the rain getting in. You can very easily roll one side up, leave the other side down, and adjust it a little bit so you have water runoff, and you can guy line the sides out to keep that down, to keep spray from coming in during the rain. It has these really nice screened-in windows, and one of the things I really like about these is that there are zippers only on the sides, and they have Velcro on the top portions. And even with high winds and extreme cold, they did an absolutely fantastic job on being able to keep that draft out. When I had the heat of the wood stove, any little bit of a draft that was coming in there, no problem whatsoever. I definitely wanted to show you this layout because the temperature is starting to drop now. It was almost 70 degrees today, and you know, in the upper 60s. Right now it's about 50, and as you know, the evening begins to approach, it's going to be a low of 39 degrees today, or overnight tonight. And so I'm definitely going to be firing up the old wood stove there here probably around 8 o'clock or so, and when the temperature gets down to the low 50s or the upper 40s, and I can do me some cooking. But this was the layout in this configuration, and I'm going to be dropping the sides down and getting it battened down for the colder temperatures this evening. And also, we're supposed to have much higher winds. You can probably tell it's starting to inflate a little bit because of the wind. Okay, I've battened down the hatches. Only took a few minutes, maybe 10 at that. And as you can see, I have multiple poles. Those do not come with the one Tigris CozShack. I purchased those from Amazon. They're from a company called Garvden Pro. Garvden Pro. I'll put a link in the description box below, and you can check those out. They are a little on the high end. However, They are very, very well made. And even though you can set this structure up with no poles whatsoever, these poles do add a lot of structural support, especially in high winds. And talking about high winds, this is a tent stake that comes with the one Tigris CozShack. It is a very well made tent stake. However, they are very short, and in high winds they did not hold up. If one Tigris would produce a stake identically to this, I would buy them, especially for the winter seasons, because you have the softer soil because of the damp, and also you have the freezing and thawing, which creates that little bit of permafrost, and a lot of air and water gets trapped in the upper 3 inches of the soil, and you need something that will go deeper. So I have supplemented my one Tigris CozShack with several longer of the tent stakes. Garvin Pro, they provided like great big honking huge nails. You can see them right there with the green tops with theirs, and I use those. Those are pretty nice because they do fit like right through the grommets. They're a perfect fit, and I like those. And since, you know, they already fit inside the pouch, whenever I take the poles, I'm going to take those as well. I only purchased one set of 4, and I will be purchasing another set of 4. And in that set of 4, that will provide me enough poles to be able to do all the way around, including the peaks. Now, we'll come through and check out some of the features. Right down here, you can see there is a buckle that's there. I don't know why necessarily you would want to use the smaller end as an entrance, but you very easily could. The zippers on all of these are waterproofed zippers, and you know, bring it a little closer so you can see that too. They are waterproof zippers, but the addition of the Fastech style buckles, the slide release buckles down at the bottom, locks that into position so that any high winds will not permit that zipper to go up. And the nice thing about that is you can operate those buckles inside and outside. So if you're inside, you can buckle it, zip it down, and you know that it's going to stay secure throughout the evening. These sides, there are additional loops specifically for poles. So they had poles in mind, and one Tigris does sell poles, if I'm not mistaken. And but these poles are really, really well made. If you notice on the top, they have these little stanchions, and they help hold everything in position, and it also prevents anyone from getting impaled by them. If you have a tarp and you want to put a peak in it, you can actually use these, because this will not pierce any of the fabrics. That's easily 1.5 inch wide, and it's got a textured knurled surface, so it provides a good bit of gription. Even though it may flex left or right, it still holds really, really well. So there, you got an extra bonus review of the poles. But the CozShack comes with more than enough guy lines to go out. I did in the winter use 2 guy lines per pole on the corners, and just for a little extra added security, to make certain that it held well in the high winds, and they did very well. We're not expecting really high winds this evening, but it is supposed to get pretty breezy. You can see the toggles that I used earlier to turn this into like an awning type shelter. This is one of the 2 long zips, and they also have the slide release buckles down there, and that's what I would use to enter one side or the other. And I've decided this is going to be my entrance for this evening. On the top peaks here, you can see ventilation that has a removable Velcro tab. You just stick that in there and push that in. You still have a little bit of a gap, but it's okay. It's okay. You want a little bit of ventilation, and that right there will provide a little bit of ventilation. And then you pull that off, stick it back on, and you have a good significant amount of ventilation. And the hood prevents any water, even in high winds, from getting in from rain, spray, or whatever. Here you can see the exterior of the no-seam mesh windows. And here you can see the sides without poles, and so you can see the loop is there, and everything that is here is what you would see if the shelter were erected without using poles. This is what that would look like. I do have one pole on the corner though, and the big difference with that is you are in control as to the pitch of that angle with your guy line. You have a longer guy line, it's going to stretch that out a little bit more. A shorter guy line, it's going to match that angle of the roof, and that's what you really want. And I have guy lines on my stovepipe that go out in 3 different directions, and the stovepipes of the Danchel Outdoors tent stove are very well made. The depth, as you can see, of those pipes when you seat them, I can't possibly imagine how those would blow off. However, you know, they provided the guy line tie-outs up here at the spark arrestor, so I figured I would use them, and really just to get in the habit of doing it. And if I do it all the time, I never ever have to worry about, you know, losing my stovepipe during high winds. And of course, the stove jack is really a great design. Not only do you have a stove jack, which will not catch fire or melt, but you also have a cover for when you're not using it that will come down over top of the hole. And you have a roll up bit of waterproof fabric that comes up underneath these flaps all the way up through. And again, they do not use a zipper all the way around. When you have one zipper that goes all the way around and it fails, you have a big problem. If I have one of these 2 zippers fail, and I have the Velcro underneath that flap at the top, it's still going to be okay. It's still going to be okay. But, you know, that's what they did on the windows too, and I really like that. When is the last time that you were in a regular, ordinary tent and you had any of your windows, your doors, or anything else had really long zippers, went all the way around, and that was the only option you had, and it failed? You don't want to be in that position. One thing I found was sort of interesting too, were the addition of all of these loops. All the way around, you have additional loops for either additional guy out points, which would definitely, I mean, it would really strengthen the tent and make it much more rigid. But you could also use those for, I would say, probably tent pole like the fiberglass tent poles, the heavier duty ones. They could run up all the way up through the sides and to give more rigidity there. And so they provide a lot of potential for this shelter. You know, even though they don't provide it with this shelter, the shelter itself provides you the opportunity to deal with it any way that you want. And I like that. It has a lot of versatility to it, but it also has a lot of gratifying possibilities for those of you out there that get creative and you like to improve things or try different things out. And here's another side, did not have a pole. And like I said, I'm going to order additional poles for that. And we have another vent. This was set up in the woods through all kinds of different weather conditions for, I think it was a month and 2 weeks when it was all said and done. Not a single leak, not a single tear, nothing was damaged whatsoever. And I'm impressed by that, especially with the price of this tent. I'm impressed by it. The guy lines that come with it are reflective. They're, as you can tell, it's coyote brown, which can be a very nice tactical color, which, you know, that's the kind of color I want. Not necessarily because it's tactical, but because it blends into the woods. I despise anything that clashes with my environment. I come to the woods to escape everything else. I do not want bright colors for any of my gear in the woods. I want to blend in. And I want to look like I'm part of my surroundings in nature. I don't want to look like a tumor that needs to be removed from nature. And just my humble opinion. Yeah. The configuration of this, as you can see, the triangular configuration there, low wall here, high walls on either side, that really enhances the ability of this shelter to function as a hot tent. And that, in the addition to the reflective lining that's in it, it's definitely fits the bill as not only a hot tent, but for every other purpose that they advertise it to be able to do. And I'm quite impressed. Okay, we're going to go on inside. And before we do, I want to show you this zipper here. They're tied together so they can never come too far apart. This is the area that your hammock strap would go through. And once you have it in and you lay in it, you can adjust it down to break up any draft that might actually occur. I'm going to come in. You can go ahead and undo the buckle. As you can see, this is quite spacious. And for one person, this is absolute luxury. Absolute luxury. And I have absolutely loved camping in this shelter. It has actually been a serious blessing in multiple regards. When I'm here in this shelter, I feel like I'm on my own cabin in the woods. And about the only thing that make it a little more homey, and I have room for it, I just haven't brought it because I have a cot to sit on, is to sit in a nice comfy camp chair. And like I said, I haven't brought one yet. And you know, I'm certain I eventually will. But it gives me more than enough room to be able to have all of the stuff that I bring with me, because when I come out, I have all kinds of stuff for all kinds of other videos I'm going to be shooting while I'm out. And I have plenty of room to do videos in here as well. And no shelter that I have ever had affords me that opportunity to be able to film inside the shelter with my camera. So that has been another blessing with this. Turn around and show you the inside of the toggle loops all along through the ridge there. And take a look at the seams too. The seams are all really well sealed and waterproofed. I have gone through this thing with as about a fine a tooth comb as I possibly can, considering its size. And I have not seen one deviation, one bubble, one separation in this entire seam of any spot on it. And that impresses me a great deal. You can see the wood stove and how it goes up through the wood jack there, or the stove jack, and it's very well laid out. And I think the positioning of it makes a tremendous amount of sense, because look at the distance around the wood stove that there is. So you're not going to have any fabric fatigue whatsoever from the heat radiating from that wood stove. Now granted, you know, I haven't had this thing cherry red, and I don't plan on having it cherry red. So I don't know what kind of an effect that would have on it, but I think it would have a horrible effect on the actual stove itself. Speaking of the stove, let's go ahead and take a look at it. Now, I did a very thorough unboxing video of this stove, and I was sort of surprised that the CozShack video unboxing got a much higher rate of views than this wood stove. As far as the tent goes, I'm incredibly impressed with it, because there's just not a whole lot like it out there. You have box stoves everywhere, and so maybe that was it. It's another box stove. But the price factor for those stoves versus this one, and the fact that I wanted a solid construction wood stove. I did not want one that disassembled and reassembled, and I've had bad experiences with those in the past. I wanted a good, solid wood stove. And this Danchel outdoor tent stove definitely provided me everything I wanted. The legs, for one thing. I really love the design of the legs. I've seen a lot out there that have tripods. They have a single bar that's folded to where there's like 3 bars. One goes across the bottom. And this stove enables you, if you have uneven ground, to be able to adjust it a little bit better. You can push one of the legs down in the soil. You can put something underneath one of the legs if you needed to. And if there's anything in between the 2 legs, like a root or something like that, that'll cause it to teeter. So you have to do more stuff with it. And the idea of having 4 legs presented to me a stove with much greater stability than the other leg configurations. The stove itself, it's riveted together, and there were a couple times to where I could see a little bit of a glow coming out through one of the seams. And other than that, I haven't seen any type of fatigue or separation from using it, and I used it a lot. I really like these fold-up grates. Those are fantastic for setting aside items that you want to keep warm, or for drying items on, socks, dish rags, what have you. It's on either side, and of course when they both lift up, they provide a handle. And if you happen to see my video on turning a billy pot into a bake oven, these came up to support and stabilize the billy can, and also provide structure to put the aluminum hood over it so it could actually bake. Now, probably the biggest thing that I have to talk about is the fatigue on these inner flanges. When they heated up, they shifted, so you have to use like a pair of pliers, a multiplier or something like that, needle nose, to sort of bend those back out so that they will actually fall down into position and roll around again. And I need to do that again. That is probably the only complaint I have with this. I love having that there because I start my wood stove fires exactly like I do my campfires. I use the upside down fire method. And for me to be able to go ahead and load up all the wood and put my tinder and everything else I need there, my kindling on top, and start it that way, and then put the lid back on it, works very, very well for me. I don't have to work out of the little door that's in front. Now, granted, I said it's a little door, but that is a fairly significant opening to put my firewood. It has a nice little tray for ashes that you can empty at the end of every day before you start your fire up again, or even while it's in use. You can empty it out, and there is not a back on the tray, so you can use it as a scoop to get other ashes out that haven't fallen deep back in the back there, and that works out really well. The vents, and I also like the fact that there is a slip ring on that, so you can just use the hook that's provided with it to loop into there and open it up. The vents work very, very well. You master this with your flue, and it's as easy as operating your thermostat at home. I know that if I keep the vents completely closed, I know where I need to adjust my flue. I can keep it a constant 60 to 65 degrees in the tent all the time, and that's when it's really cold. And that is testament not only to the stove, but also to the tent. Now, when I first started coming out and using the wood stove, I was diligent with removing the stovepipe from about that section up, closing up the top of the tent. Well, I didn't one time, and as a result, I actually had leaking from a heavy rainstorm that came down and caused a little bit of rusting on the stove. Not a major problem, and a little bit of puddling there. That was good and bad. And the good part was the fact that there's a hole in the tent during a major rainstorm, and just a little bit of water came in. The bad part is I got a little rust. And also the creosote that builds up inside the pipes it's noticeable. And again, I used it a lot. I used to have a wood stove in my home. It heated my whole home, and you know, I cleaned the chimney once a month. Wasn't that big of a deal. I didn't use this stove every single day for a month, and the creosote buildup was a little higher. That could have a lot to do with the moisture content in the wood and the type of the wood. Well, the 6 centimeter stovepipe, there's not a whole lot of stovepipe brushes out there for that size of pipe. So what I did is I bought a toilet brush from the dollar store,
and squished it down to where it would fit in there, and it did an absolutely fantastic job with cleaning it out. So that's part of my permanent kit now. And so now every single time that I, go away and I leave the shelter up, the wood had already burned out. I, let it extinguish in the morning. I'm going to go ahead and take the pipe apart then and clean it then and leave the pipe separated so that I can close the stove jack so no moisture will get in.
For those of you that have not seen my other videos about either the wood stove or the tent, I wanted to explain my rationale for getting this. I also want to thank my wonderful wife for actually purchasing the tent and the stove for me. It was my Christmas present this year. And so, honey, thank you very much. My rationale for this is that normally when I go camping, I throw everything in my pack and I go. Sometimes miles and miles away from my vehicle. And that means I have to go miles and miles back to my vehicle. And I also didn't care if I had cell phone reception or not. I was on my own. Well, my life situation has changed dramatically at home. I have to be able to be in constant contact with my home, and I have to be able to get back home relatively quickly. And the idea of doing what I did just wouldn't work. So now I've been blessed with the opportunity to be able to use an absolutely astronomically large piece of property that has old logging trails going through the entire thing. And so I have the potential of being able to camp at another awesome spot every single day of the year for 30 years if I wanted to. I'm not going to make it 30 years. I'm old. But this location is very close to home, relatively. I think from the time that I left home to where I got to this campsite, it was 20 minutes. And so that's still good and doable. And so I needed to be close to my vehicle. I needed to have radio contact. The other things that I wanted to be able to do is to be able to have a shelter to be able to camp in that I could leave up and just leave it if I needed to. I wanted a shelter that I could film in for my videos when it's pouring down rain or snow or anything else with the weather. I wanted to be able to have that type of an environment year round. So that's where the hot stove comes in. And where I camp now, where this is set up now, yeah, I can use that as like an emergency thing to film inside if I need it. But I can also hammock camp right over there. I can ground camp right over there. I don't have to use this if I don't want to, but I can set it up just in case we have that chance of bad weather that I cannot film in because my camera's not waterproof. And I don't like filming with my GoPro well enough to be able to figure out a way to where I can shoot a video with that. So my rationale with this is to be able to do all those things. However, because that was my criteria when I was looking for shelters and wood stoves, to meet that criteria, I found this. And this CozShack, it is a tent. It's large enough for me to film in. It is a hot tent, so therefore I can film in it in the winter. However, it's also a hammock shelter. It is an awning, sheltered awning. I can I haven't done it, and I probably never will. I can extend these walls and the roofs out in any directions and guy line those down and have a huge awning shelter, like a canopy. I mean, it would be huge. Be huge. Probably be at least twice the the area for the roof than the footprint is, easily. But it offers all of those potentials. The wood stove. I wanted a base solid wood stove. I didn't want anything I had to put together. I didn't want anything that I was going to be putting in my backpack at camp, because I was using my Jeep to get it here. When the tent is broken down and put into its bag, the poles are broken down and put in their bags. The wood stove is broken down and put in its bag. It's not a lot of weight at all. Probably, I would conservatively say probably 35 pounds for everything. Everything. And it takes up a very small amount of space in my Jeep. This fit the bill for every single thing that I needed for my particular situation. That is an actual blessing. So the big question is, would I recommend these two items? And the answer is absolutely. Everything that I have done with these items and the short amount of time that I've had them, if there was going to be any problems with them whatsoever, they would have revealed themselves. When you use a piece of equipment extensively for a long period of time and you have an issue with it, well, that's wear and tear. That happens with everything. But normally when you buy something that's not exactly up to snuff, you find out really quick. And these two items, the Danchel Outdoors tent stove and the Tigris CozShack, far exceeded my expectations. And I look forward to using them well into the future. So there you have it, folks. My endorsement and my recommendation. As always, folks, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. I just didn't want to do a quick walk around Bleh. And
Today is going to be my final word on the Danchel outdoor.
Test 2 3, test 2 3. Now this is going to be my final. Like I said, I usually will might want to go ahead and just go ahead and exit this video. Side that is facing the camera, there is one really long zipper, which is normally one of the doors. The other one is right there. Wrong answer. But when you close up the doors at the top, I'm just going to show you. I can't recall the brand name of the and like if you know if you've not watched the other videos, I want to remind load up everything I need for as long as I need. A tree just fell. I heard it. And I also want to plug my wonderful wife because she actually purchased this for me. She purchased the wood stove and the tent for me. Yeah, I'm that good. No, I am that grateful. Very, very grateful. I have and with the amount of time I've had with this and what I've done with it, very impressed with it. I would highly recommend it. And yeah, I just I don't really know what else to say about it. I just am